There are setbacks, embarrassment and despair, and then there's Mick Schumacher, who has yet to obtain a spot for the forthcoming season. With only 2 spots available and Ricciardo departing F1, everyone's wondering what's next for Mick Schumacher and what is happening with Daniel. Let's find out. If there's one thing we didn't hope to hear, Ricciardo stated that he would not be a part of the F1 2023 driver lineup, thereby ending his 11-year F1 career with HRT, Toro Rosso, Red Bull, Renault and McLaren. After McLaren indicated they would pay out the remaining year of his contract and replace him with Oscar Piastri, Ricciardo could not agree with any of the prospective vacant seats at his disposal, including Alpine and Haas. None of this is about ego, unrealistic demands, or a sudden lack of opportunity, Ricciardo's agent Nick Tim said. We all know this is a story of a man who was dealt a bad hand and is now hunting for the right next opportunity. Knowing everything he has gone through, finding a new project where he can cooperate with a team that recognizes his particular combination of qualities may be tough. Remember, just a few people on the grid can match Daniel's maturity and experience now more than ever. Many predict that the Honey Badger will still be as close to the F1 grid as he can in 2023. He does not appear to be completed yet. Anything is possible, as we've seen this season. Ricciardo might still be a reserve or test driver for Mercedes next season, having been linked to the club as a backup for Lewis Hamilton and George Russell, with French TV Canal Plus reporting advanced discussions for the post. The Australian has previously ruled out a career in NASCAR or IndyCar. After a disappointing season with McLaren, he is 12th in the F1 standings, trailing teammate Lando Norris, who has consistently outpaced him, and is 7th. Ricciardo's salary for 2022 is equal 5th highest on the list of F1 driver salaries, reflecting his seniority on the circuit, but he now faces a starker reality without a clear option for 2023. And at 33 years old, his only hope for a return to F1 is seemingly in 2024, by which time he will have spent a year away. It's ludicrous for him to believe he'll find a seat waiting for him if he leaves. I mean, you're not the god of speed like Max Verstappen. Do you believe you'll receive a free spot when you return? Until then, at least. But let's go back to the topic at hand. The dreaded letdown. Mick Schumacher is a fantastic driver, or rather, an amazing driver, but it's unclear whether he'll be a driver at all in the future. Mick Schumacher is due to leave Ferrari at the end of the year, sparking debate over whether he may be forced out of Haas. Schumacher has been a member of the Ferrari Driver Academy since 2019, but he might be replaced by Antonio Giovinazzi, a former Alfa Romeo driver. Without a doubt, his career is in jeopardy after failing to impress against new teammate Kevin Magnussen this season. Although it has been reported that Mick Schumacher would be astonished if Haas contract discussions fail due to the collision at the F1 Japanese Grand Prix. Why wouldn't it? It's not like he didn't crash, we all witnessed it, so why the surprise? Schumacher lost control of his car during the first practice session of the F1 Japanese Grand Prix on Friday, crashing into a barrier and missing the second session. He finished 17th with teammate Kevin Magnussen, 14th in Suzuka, amid speculations that he is finally in talks with Haas to prolong his tenure and remain in the F1 2023 driver lineup. I would be surprised if it played a factor in prolonging the agreement. He told Sky Deutschland of his most recent fall. I mean, there's the performance. I've had to cope with pressure for a long time, possibly my entire life. It doesn't bother me, and I always do my hardest. Haas team principal Gunther Steiner chastised Michael Schumacher's son this season for his frequent crashes. Incidents in Jeddah and Monaco cost his team a lot of money and, more importantly, hurt his reputation. His current contract expires at the end of the season, although Schumacher has recently begun talks with Haas about continuing for next year. Daniel Ricciardo and Nico Hülkenberg had been mentioned publicly as prospective replacements. The only 2 teams with vacant seats for the F1 2023 season are Haas and Williams. Having just 2 teams that may or may not want you is out of this planet. To top it all off, Gunther Steiner is presently disparaging him. When questioned about Mick Schumacher's future, Gunther Steiner said, "I'm not trying to be harsh." Gunther Steiner, Haas team principal, is unsure whether his team's immediate future will be sorted before the 2022 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, but all he can do is hope. Mick Schumacher was re-signed for another season, following some outstanding performances in a vastly underperforming Haas vehicle last season. The German had little to go on when partnered with Nikita Mazepin, but the Russian was fired ahead of the new season due to his country's continuing invasion of Ukraine. Kevin Magnussen returns to Formula One after a year away, and he has 5 points this season, 2 of which came in the first 2 rounds. Schumacher's improvement has been slower, and two costly crashes in Jeddah and Monaco haven't helped his confidence. However, the 23-year-old has matured in the campaign with 2 points finishes at Silverstone and Spielberg. Both Haas drivers are unlucky not to have scored points in any of the previous 7 races, but Schumacher has been regularly faster than his teammates since Canada. However, he has yet to sign a new deal beyond the end of this year. Nico Hülkenberg was raced 5 times for Aston Martin, formerly Racing Point, since leaving Renault in 2019, is widely seen as a strong contender to replace his colleague. On the other hand, Schumacher has the benefit of being well established and entrenched inside the American team. Having someone you've worked with for 2 years is usually preferable than bringing in someone fresh, Steiner said. I've always claimed that Mick didn't acquire his points by chance, but by performance. The points, the consequence of a progression. The 2020 Formula 2 champion is thought to have started discussions about a new contract last weekend in Singapore, and they will resume at the United States Grand Prix later in October. Team owner Gene Haas will attend that weekend, and Steiner wants to move closer to finalizing the team's plans for 2023. When asked if Haas will be ready for the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix in November, he answered, "I hope so. It brings me no delight to give you an answer you don't like. I'm not sure," is the response. "I don't love answering that question, and I'm not trying to be impolite." Schumacher's collision after FP1 on Friday didn't help his chances, and the ensuing full chassis replacement took him out of the second practice session. Aside from the bad news, there appears to be some light at the end of the tunnel for Mick Schumacher, as Williams chief reveals interest in Haas star deserves to remain. Mick Schumacher has received a boost ahead of the forthcoming Formula 1 season, with Williams boss Jost Capito opening the door to a position the following year. Schumacher's contract with Haas expires at the end of the current season. No decision has been taken on whether it will be renewed. Nico Hülkenberg is expected to replace Schumacher with Haas, who has had a difficult season, finishing in the points only twice. Capito, the club's manager, has now revealed that the German has emerged as a candidate to drive for the team in the upcoming season. Capito told RTL that Mick is an option for them and that he deserves to continue in F1 since he has the potential to progress and become a very excellent driver. He likened him to the well-known George Russell, currently in his second year. George Russell made blunders in his second year at Williams and still grew. We're sure they're hoping for the same with Schumacher, but as they say, one man's meat is another man's poison. We all know that Formula 1 is extremely complex, and the jump from Formula 2 is enormous since the cars are much more sophisticated and technically demanding. You have to understand it, and it takes 2 years for a driver to get there and show what he can do and what he can offer in the 3rd year. The forthcoming season in Formula 1 will be exciting, with the new cars, new drivers behind them, and of course, a new team for Mick Schumacher, if he does get one. Perhaps, just perhaps, he deserves a second chance. What are your thoughts? Comment below.